The worst betrayals don't always come with shouting. Sometimes they come quietly. With a smile, with a normal voice. With a sentence that sounds harmless, until it isn't. She said it casually, like she was talking about the weather. "Sweetheart, this vacation will be without you." At first, he laughed. He thought it was a joke. But when he looked at her face, there was no smile, no warmth. Just a strange calmness, the kind that feels cold once you notice it, without him. No discussion, no hesitation. Just like that. This was his mother. The woman who raised him. The woman he trusted more than anyone else. And in that moment something inside him shifted. Though he didn't know yet how deep this would cut. Because this wasn't just about a vacation. This was the beginning of a lesson that would cost them everything. From the outside, they looked like a normal family. Photos on social media, smiles during holidays, group dinners, birthdays, small jokes. People envied them. But behind those smiles lived quiet favoritism. His younger siblings were treated differently. Their mistakes were forgiven. Their wants were priorities. He was the responsible one. The one who paid on time. The one who helped when money was tight. The one who never said no. When his mother needed help paying a bill, he helped. When she needed a new phone, he helped. When the family car didn't go through, he stepped in. Because that's what good sons do. Or at least, that's what he believed. Over the years, he built a habit without realizing it. He trusted them with his money. Too much. It started small. "Can I use your card just this once? I'll pay you back next week. It's just for emergencies." At first, he watched every transaction. Then life got busy. Work, stress, long days. Eventually, the card became something normal, something they all knew about. His name, his account, his responsibility, but not his control. Still, he never imagined they would cross a real line. Why would they? They were family. The vacation was supposed to be a family thing. They had talked about it for months. Beach, hotels, photories. He had even helped with part of the planning. So when his mother said, "This one is without you," it didn't make sense. He asked gently, "Why?" She avoided his eyes. "Well, you're busy with work. And we already booked everything." Already booked. Without him, no invitation, no chance to join. No choice, just exclusion, clean and final. He nodded slowly. On the outside, he stayed calm. On the inside, something cracked. The house felt different when they left. Too quiet, no voices, no movement, no warmth. He watched their photos appear online. Smiling faces, hotel views, beach sunsets. His mother looked happier than he'd seen her in years. And still, something felt wrong. Not jealousy. A warning. A strange feeling he couldn't explain. It happened late at night. One notification. Then another, 3 more. He picked up his phone. His heart slowed. Transaction approved, transaction approved, transaction approved. From a city he wasn't in. From stores he never visited. His fingers tightened around the phone. He opened his banking app. That's when he realized. They weren't just on vacation, they were shopping. With his card. No. He whispered to himself. There must be a mistake. Maybe a glitch, maybe an error. He refreshed the screen. The balance dropped again. That's when denial stopped protecting him. And truth walked in. Slow, heavy, unforgiving. He called his mother. Once, twice. Straight to voicemail. He sent a message. No reply. Another transaction came through, larger this time. That night he didn't sleep. Because now the question wasn't just why they left him behind. The real question was, how far were they willing to go? Morning didn't bring relief. It brought proof. He opened his banking app again, hoping, foolishly, that the numbers had somehow fixed themselves overnight. They hadn't. The balance was lower, much lower. New transactions appeared while he slept. Hotel upgrades, shopping outlets, dining places with names he'd never heard before. This wasn't accidental spending. This was comfort spending. The kind of spending people do when they believe someone else will handle the consequences. His chest tightened. For the first time, a thought crossed his mind that he had never allowed before. They're using me. Not borrowing, not asking. Using. Hours later, his phone buzzed. A message from his mother. Why are you calling so much? We're on vacation. Relax, relax. As if his money wasn't disappearing in real time, he replied carefully. "Mom, I'm getting charges on my card." Minutes passed. Then her reply came. "Oh that, yes, we had to use it. Our card stopped working. We'll fix it later." Later, no apology, no warning, no question. Just expectation. He stared at the screen, replaying her words in his head. "We had to." As if it was obvious, as if he was supposed to understand. As if saying no was never an option. Suddenly, old moments felt different. Every time he helped without question. Every time his needs were ignored. Every sacrifice he made quietly. This wasn't new behavior. This was just the first time he was paying attention. And it hurt. Not because of the money, but because of what it revealed. The charges didn't slow down. They increased. Larger amounts, luxury brands, experiences meant to be remembered. He watched his savings, money he'd worked years for, turn into someone else's memories. And the worst part, they didn't even ask. Not once. He called again. This time, she answered. Her voice was cheerful. "Why do you sound so serious?" He explained calmly. Too calmly. "I didn't agree to this. You're spending too much." There was a pause. Then came the tone he knew too well. "You're exaggerating." "Exaggerating. You always think about money," she added. "We're family. Don't be so dramatic." Family. The word that ended conversations. The word that erased boundaries. And suddenly, he understood something painfully clear. They didn't see his card as his. They saw it as theirs. That night another charge went through. The largest one yet. Something in him broke. Not loudly. Quietly. The kind of break where anger doesn't explode, it sharpens. He didn't cry. He didn't shout. He sat still, staring at the screen. And made a decision. He logged into his banking app. His finger hovered. Just one tap. One simple action. Once he did this, there was no going back. This wasn't about money anymore. This was about respect, trust. Boundaries that were never honored. He pressed the button. Look, Eddie, nothing happened right away. No messages, no calls. Then suddenly, his phone lit up. Missed call. Another, then a message. "Why isn't your card working?" No. No? Did something happen? Just frustration. Just inconvenience. He didn't reply immediately. For the first time in his life. He let them wait. Then the message that changed everything arrived. "You can't do this to us. We're stranded." Stranded. Because the card was blocked. Because they had nothing else planned. Because they assumed, like always, that he would fix it. He leaned back and exhaled slowly. They weren't just careless, they were dependent. And now, they were scared. The phone didn't stop ringing. Call after call, message after message. But the tone was different now. Gone was the casual confidence. Gone was the entitlement. What replaced it was panic. "We can't pay for the hotel. Our checkout is tomorrow. Answer your phone." He read every message. Slowly, carefully. And for the first time in his life, he didn't rush to fix their problem. He sat there, breathing calmly, realizing something important. This is what it feels like when the power changes hands. Then the messages changed. From urgency to guilt. "I raised you better than this. How can you abandon your own family? You're being heartless." Heartless. The word hit him, but not the way it used to. Before, guilt controlled him. Now, it exposed them. Because not once did they say, "We're sorry. We were wrong. We crossed a line." They weren't ashamed of what they did. They were angry it stopped working. He didn't reply for hours. Those hours felt long to them. To him, they felt necessary. He thought about every moment he stayed quiet before. Every time he swallowed his feelings to keep peace. This silence was different. This silence was chosen. And it was doing exactly what he needed. When he finally answered, his mother didn't greet him. She demanded, "What are you trying to prove?" He stayed calm. "I'm proving that it's my card." There was anger on the other end. "We're your family." "Yes," he replied. "And you didn't treat me like one." Silence followed. The kind that hurts more than shouting. She spoke again, slower now. "We needed it." That sentence said everything. Not asked, not discussed. Needed, and suddenly, he understood something clearly. In their story, his role was simple. Provider, backup, solution. Not a person. "If you don't unblock it," she said sharply, "don't bother calling us when we get back." There it was. The threat. The last card they had left. In the past, that would have destroyed him. This time, he felt something unexpected, relief. If that's the price of being respected, he said, then so be it. She hung up on him. No goodbye, no resolution, just a click. And in that moment, the dynamic that ruled his life for years ended. Soon other family members got involved. Aunts, uncles, cousins, they all had opinions. You should help. Be the bigger person. They're embarrassed. Embarrassed, not regretful. Embarrassed. And finally, he replied once. I didn't embarrass them. Their choices did. After that, he stopped explaining himself. Hours passed. Then a message arrived, short. Different tone. We had to borrow money. No anger. No accusations. Just defeat. They were finally experiencing something new. Responsibility. They came back days later. The house felt tense. Nobody spoke at first. Eyes avoided. Movement stiff. Vacations end. Truth doesn't carefully. They didn't look happy. They looked exposed. His mother finally spoke. You humiliated us. He met her eyes calmly. You humiliated yourselves when you spent money that wasn't yours. Her mouth opened. Then closed. Because this time, he didn't look unsure. My card, he said evenly, will never be used again. You don't trust us, she asked. I trust actions, he replied, and your actions were clear. No shouting, no tears, just silence. But this silence was different from before. This silence had weight. Because everyone understood something now. He wasn't the safety net anymore. That night, lying in bed, he didn't feel victory. He felt peace. Because revenge isn't always loud, sometimes. It's simply refusing to be used again. The days after their return felt heavier than the argument itself. Nobody talked about the vacation anymore. Nobody laughed, nobody shared photos. The house moved, but the family didn't. Every meal was quiet. Every glance carried something unsaid. And for the first time, he noticed something strange. They were careful around him. Not loving. Careful. Bills started coming in. Electricity, internet, groceries. Normally no one worried. He handled it. This time he didn't. He paid only what was his responsibility, nothing more, and slowly, reality began to knock. One evening he overheard whispers. Did you pay that yet? No, I thought you did. Tension grew. Small problems that were once invisible became loud. Because the cushion they relied on was gone. His mother tried again, softer this time. You know, she said casually, things are tight this month. He nodded. No reaction. She waited silence. Then she added, families help each other. He looked at her calmly. Families respect boundaries too. She didn't reply. They started making changes. Cheaper groceries, cancelled plans, arguments over small expenses. Things he had quietly absorbed for years. Now landed on them. And none of them liked it. Soon, the story changed. To outsiders, the story wasn't about masseuse anymore. It became. He changed. He became selfish. He thinks he's better than us. And for the first time, he didn't rush to defend himself. He learned something important during those weeks. People who benefit from your silence and will hate your boundaries. And that was okay. Because for the first time, his peace didn't depend on their approval. Months passed. No dramatic apology. No emotional reconciliation. Just distance. And strangely, that distance felt healthy. He saved better. He smiled without guilt. Not because he hurt them, but because he stopped hurting himself. One day, unexpectedly, his mother said quietly, we didn't realize how much we relied on you. Not sorry. But aware. He nodded. That was enough. They learned responsibility when comfort disappeared. They learned limits when access was removed. And they learned something else. That love isn't proven by sacrifice alone. It's proven by respect. Revenge wasn't yelling or cutting people off forever. Revenge was simple. He stopped being predictable. And when that happened, everything changed. Sometimes, betrayal doesn't come from enemies. It comes from the people who know your kindness best. And sometimes, the strongest thing you can say is nothing at all. If someone only values you for what you provide, then removing access is not cruelty, it's clarity. And clarity changes lives. Time has a way of doing what arguments never can. Weeks turned into months. The anger faded first, then the tension. What remained was clarity. He realized something quietly, almost accidentally. No one checked on him anymore. Not to ask how he was, not to ask if he was okay. Only when money was tight did his name surface in conversation. And that told him everything he needed to know. Before, he was involved in everything. Now he watched from the outside. Arguments over expenses, blame bouncing between family members, stress where comfort once lived. And he understood something clearly. He wasn't the cause of their stability. He was the cover for their irresponsibility. One evening, his mother sat nearby longer than usual, quiet. Then she spoke. Things were easier before. He waited. She hesitated. He could feel it. The apology hovering in the air. But it never landed. Because apologizing would mean admitting wrongdoing. And not everyone is brave enough for that. There were moments when he questioned himself. Late nights, silent dinners. Was he too harsh? But every time doubt crept in, he remembered the messages, the entitlement, the panic, the lack of remorse. And the doubt faded again. Growth doesn't always feel good. But it always feels honest. Life settled into something simpler. Smaller, quieter. But more real. He budgeted without stress. He planned without fear of being drained. He lived without waiting for the next crisis. And slowly, his family adapted. Not happily. But inevitably, they never used his card again. And not because they apologized. But because they knew access was gone. And boundaries, once enforced, speak louder than explanations ever could. One afternoon, he scrolling through old photos, he stopped at a family picture. Smiles frozen in time. He didn't feel anger. He felt understanding. They weren't evil. They were entitled. And entitlement only survives when kindness has no limits. There were words he never said out loud. About being excluded. About feeling used. About the quiet resentment that built over years. He didn't need to say them anymore. Because his actions had already spoken. This isn't a story about money. It's a story about boundaries. About what happens when love becomes obligation. About what happens when one person carries weight that belongs to everyone. Sometimes, the hardest betrayal isn't being left out of a vacation. It's realizing you were only invited when you were useful. And sometimes, the strongest revenge isn't punishment. It's peace. If this story sounds familiar, remember this. You are allowed to protect yourself, even from family. You are allowed to say no, without explaining yourself. And when you finally do, don't be surprised if the people who benefited the most are the ones who react the worst. Something changed as the months passed. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. The house felt smaller to them now, not because the walls moved, but because comfort had left. Vacations stopped, impulse spending stopped, excuses stopped working, and slowly, something uncomfortable appeared. Regret. He heard about it later. An argument when he wasn't home. Someone said, "We shouldn't have assumed he'd always cover us." Another voice replied, "He warned us." Silence followed. Because that sentence couldn't be argued with. Before, they controlled the narrative. Now, they had to face reality without him buffering it. Bills didn't care about excuses. Life didn't care about intentions. And slowly, painfully, they learned what he had been shielding them from for years. His mother started acting different. Not warm, not distant, careful. She asked neutral questions. "How's work? Are you okay?" But she never crossed the line again. Because she finally understood something: trust, once broken, comes back on conditions. They never said, "We're sorry we used you." But their behavior said something else. They stopped asking, stopped hinting, stopped assuming. Sometimes, growth looks like silence. One day he checked his account. Healthy balance, no surprise alerts, no anxiety. And in that moment, he smiled. Not because they struggled, but because he no longer did. He didn't destroy anyone. He didn't shame them publicly. He didn't scream or expose messages online. He simply removed access. And that was enough to reset everything. That's the kind of revenge that lasts. If someone only respects you when you give, they don't respect you. They respect what you provide. And the moment you stop providing, the truth shows itself. They thought the vacation was without him. But the real trip was the one he took away from being used. And once he left that place, he never went back. If you're watching this and feeling uncomfortable, ask yourself why. Sometimes stories don't hurt because they're dramatic. They hurt because they're familiar. It came months later. unexpected. His phone buzzed with her name. He hesitated. Not out of fear. Out of distance. When he answered, her voice was quieter than he remembered. We didn't mean for things to turn out this way. Didn't mean to. The phrase people use when intentions matter more to them than damage. He listened. Didn't interrupt. Because for once, she was the one explaining herself. She talked about stress. About pressure. About how everyone depended on everyone. But she never talked about the card. Never talked about spending without permission. Never talked about leaving him behind. And that's when he understood something final. Some people regret consequences, not actions. When she stopped talking, she waited. Maybe for forgiveness, maybe for reassurance. He spoke gently. I'm okay now, he said, and I want to keep it that way. Nothing cruel, nothing dramatic, just truth. That was the moment she realized. Things would never go back to how they were. They still talked after that. Holidays, short visits, surface-level peace. But the old access was gone. And that was healing, not loud forgiveness. But safe distance. Before all this, he would have apologized. For causing tension, for making things awkward, for saying no. Now, he slept peacefully. Because self-respect does that. Family isn't proven by how much you can take. It's proven by how much others are willing to not take from you. And anyone who calls boundaries betrayal was benefiting from your lack of them. 1 year later, a new vacation photo appeared online. Smaller trip, cheaper place, different ended briefly. Then locked his phone. And smiled. They once said the vacation was without him. But what they didn't realize was that life after that moment was finally with himself. If you've ever been excluded, used, or treated like a resource, remember this story. Sometimes blocking a card is the first step to unblocking your life. Long after everything settled, one question stayed with him. Not from his family, from himself. Why did it take me so long? He asked it quietly one night, staring at nothing in particular. And the answer came just as quietly. Because being used feels normal, when you're taught that love means sacrifice. No one teaches you how dangerous blind loyalty can be. Especially in families. You're taught to endure, to stay quiet, to be grateful for whatever place you're given. And slowly, without noticing, you confuse loyalty with self-erasure. That's what happened to him. Until the card stopped working. Once he saw it, he couldn't unsee it. The pattern. He only mattered when he was useful. He was ignored when he wasn't. And the vacation. That wasn't a mistake, it was honesty. They expected anger. They expected shouting. They expected him to beg for understanding. What they didn't expect was silence. Silence forced them to sit with themselves. And that discomfort did more than any argument ever could. He learned something powerful. Being kind doesn't mean being available. Being loving doesn't mean being accessible. And generosity without limits invites entitlement. When his name comes up now, the tone is different. Less confident, less casual. Because boundaries change how people remember you. They don't call him selfish anymore. They call him serious. And he's fine with that. If he could speak to the version of himself before that vacation, he would say, you don't have to disappear to belong. You don't have to pay to be loved. And you don't owe access to anyone. Some people will only notice your value when your absence creates inconvenience. And if protecting yourself makes others uncomfortable, that discomfort is not your responsibility. They thought blocking the card was cruel. But what really shocked them was realizing they couldn't control him anymore.